Hi guys, good morning. This is Ray von Schopfer here, your tech tutor for web development. And today, I really hope you're having an amazing Monday morning, first of all. This is an asynchronous lecture, so you could always come back to it whenever you're free. And I just hope you're having an amazing time. It's nice to connect with you once again. So, today we're going to be talking about soft skills and building a strong portfolio. I added the strong there because it's not just enough to build a portfolio, but it has to be very, very strong in order for you to break through into the tech space. So, the first things first is that soft skills and building a strong portfolio actually have a very strong linkage because soft skills is the way you relate with people. You sometimes you notice in some vacancies for tech positions they will always state we need a candidate that has a good team spirit, right? They need you to be able to work as a team or with a team, effectively with a team. So your social skills underneath soft skills have to be very, very top notch. So that shows how you can work with people, right? Well, the portfolio shows how much you've been able to achieve working with people, right? It's the documented proof of your work that you actually have achieved certain feats, right? So there's a very strong linkage between the two. So I'm going to call soft skills. I don't want to call them intangible skills. I want to just call them unquantifiable skills, unlike the hard skills whereby you have to use your hands. So for soft skills, they are most likely they're mostly I'll just say they're behavioral, right? The way you relate with people at work, the workplace relationship with people. How well can you manage people? How well can you manage your emotions when you're communicating with people? How well do you function as a team player? Are you a lone wolf when it comes to solving problems? Do you ghost your teammate when it's time for a project? Those are things you need to learn on that soft skills and workplace etiquette. Right? The first thing you need to learn is communication effectively. Communicating without any sense of, anger, right? Communicating clearly. There are some people at work that the way they communicate very, very vaguely. They say something, maybe when it's time to work on a project and they're trying to pass a message across, they don't really communicate it fully. They just expect you to read their minds. That is actually not supposed to be the case. You're supposed to communicate clearly. You're supposed to actively listen to people without shutting them down, right? Actively listening to people without shutting them down, even if you do not agree with them. You can say, "Oh, I really appreciate what you said, but I think we should move in this direction." You're being polite. At the same time, you're passing the message across. Because clearly speaking, active listening, and speaking without any form of, raised tempers or whatever. So effective communication is very, very key in an effective workplace, right? If you want things to be to get things done, right, you have to communicate with people. So after all of that, the next on the list is going to be having a great emotional quotient. That's having the ability to empathize with people while at the same time managing your own emotions. So you're basically like carrying two burdens. You're trying to manage your emotions, and at the same time, you're trying to empathize with people. That is moving beyond just feeling sorry for them to actually stepping into their shoes mentally. How is this person feeling right now? Right? That's what you could call like etiquette, like in the workspace. How to talk to people, how to, know the right things to say at the right time. Some people call it being diplomatic, right? So while your IQ enables you to stand out, right, on a work basis, emotional quotient helps you to rise through the ranks, right? Someone I was at a tech presentation some weeks ago or some months ago, and somebody was talking to me on how, a great conversation led to him sealing a deal, right? Because there are three rules of business, right? People will go to people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And all of this can be built by having an effective and a great emotional quotient, knowing when to talk to people, When is the right time to crack a joke? When is the right time to lighten the mood? You know, knowing all these things, right? You know, knowing when to meet somebody to ask a question. If somebody's grieving, what do you do at work? Do you just say, okay, you know what? There's a job for you to do. There's a project, and you don't even care about what they're feeling. You do not reply or respond to emotion with emotion, right? With the emotion you're feeling at that point in time. You respond with the appropriate emotion as needed for that person at that point in time, right? So if somebody's angry, you do not respond in anger. If somebody's grieving, you do not respond in a very harsh tone. You have to learn to study people, read emotional quotient books. Books that will help you. If you need to go for maybe a therapy session, I know in Africa, people it's not so popular. People really think it's a bad thing. But if you think maybe you have an anger issue, you could probably get that done. You know, and the next on the list is adaptability. How well can you adapt? How well can you transition from the old to the new? How well can you remain productive even when the circumstances change, right? When there's a new trend in the tech space, how well can you adapt? It's called cognitive flexibility, right? The ability to discard an old logic for a newer and a much more effective one for the uplifting of the team or for the brand you're working with, right? So you must be able to, maybe the lead engineer says, okay, we will not be using this logic anymore. We're going to be using something else. How well can you adapt to that? So adaptability is something that you should be able to learn, right? What are those new technologies? That's why, as a developer, right, or if you're working in any space at all, maybe you want to transition, right? What you should learn is prepare your mind to be as flexible as possible. Become a sponge, right? So when I say become a sponge, what does that mean? Be ready to absorb new ideas and let go of the old, right? Be ready to absorb as much as you can, right? Because that is the only way that you can really grow, right? We've talked about team spirit, right? Maybe you have a colleague at work and you're on good terms with, and he knows a newer technology, right? The way you can actually grow is, if this person knows this thing, you have a great relationship with this person, become a sponge to learn and glean from that person, right? So adaptability. Some people, they will say, "I can work under pressure," right? It's actually very much needed here, right? Sometimes you may be working on a project for a couple of days. How well can you adapt to those conditions? Or maybe you are a freelancer and the client says, I do not like this design, I do not like this outlook, I need it changed to something else. How well can you quickly adapt, right? And still deliver top-notch service that they are impressed with. So that's also another skill you need to learn. Adaptive, your level of adaptability and cognitive flexibility. It's very much needed. So you need to read a lot of books. So one of the ways that, or some of the ways whereby you can build soft skills, are by listening to people, right? Listening to people. You can also micro volunteer. There are tasks at the office that require a certain amount of leadership. You can volunteer, and also being able to take feedback and constructive criticism, right? Condition your mind to be able to take feedback and constructive criticism. It's going to help you a lot. So I feel that those are the ways that you can really, really like improve yourself and, you know, become the best you can be. And the next on the list is actually like building a portfolio, right? So when you say portfolio, some people might be looking and wondering what exactly are you talking about? It's basically a carefully or meticulously curated collection of your best work, right? It's carefully selected. What are those things that if your life were a magazine, right? What are those things you put on the front page? to let people come and read you? What are those things you put there that like you're basically selling yourself? This is me, this is my belt. And you put that first, like putting the right foot forward. It's a carefully selected collection of your best work as a tangible evidence that you are qualified for that position. So, what are those ways or how can you properly structure your portfolio? I'm going to say using the CPCO method. That's basically what the challenge was, the process, the collaboration, and the outcome, right? You state the challenge. What problem were you trying to fix? Because value, monetary value will only come when there's intellectual value offered in the first place. What problems were you trying to solve? You know, so what was the challenge? What was the process behind it? How did you solve it? What tools did you use? You know, what was the collaboration like? Did you collaborate with anybody? Was it a teamwork? And what was the outcome, right? So for a front end engineer, right, you can use GitHub. You can use GitHub as your own personal portfolio, right? If you go on Twitter, you see a lot of people, oh, I created this. Can you guys check out my code? That's you are selling yourself. People want to see how clean your code is, right? How did you how did you structure it so they can go through your GitHub portfolio? So for a coder like you, for someone that's a web developer, you have to have a very, very good and well structured README, right? It's like the opening of your own landing page, that people see when they get into your GitHub, right? The README has to have a good header, a good description, a catchy description, right? It also has to have the why. What is the reason why you built this? What problem were you trying to solve, right? It's basically the first thing that anybody will see when you're opening your GitHub repository, right? And after that, you put your stack, right? What are those things, those tools, right? It could be like your Node.js, your SQL. What are those things that contributed in the making of that project, right? The next one, are the features. What are those features of your website? What can your website do differently from other websites? So you list them as like in a bullet point form. So okay, people say, okay, once people see that, okay, this person has follows a structure, right? That this person follows a structure. Then after that, you put an installation, you know, section, right? What are those commands that a person needs to enter in order to use your package or in order to use your website? Right? So those are those things. And if you could, I don't want to say it's optional, but you can put at the ending part, you can put the challenges and lessons that you learned while you were building that project. So those are very key things that let potential employers know that okay, this person, this person is a catch. This person is a good, will be a good hire, right? So building, you can also use a personal website too, right, as a portfolio. Some people do that, but some people also use GitHub. It all depends on personal preference. Is that okay? So so thank you so much, guys, for listening all the way down. It's been amazing talking to you guys. And if you have any questions, you can always ask me. And at the same time, I will just give you guys a very, very short assignment to, you know, if you are working, it's just like a typical real life example. If you are working in an organization, right, and you are trying to solve a problem with a workmate that is unwilling to listen to you, right? Maybe because you're a newbie. What are three ways you would handle it? What are three ways you think you're gonna handle it that is going to be very effective? Following all the due process that we've talked about.